think we're live again.
Fantastic.
It's Monday again.
Should we check? We need to check, right?
Oh yeah, we should. You have to check.
Okay.
You should check.
I'll check.
So while Ken's checking, I'll get started. First of all, I need to know whether the sound is right. Last week we had some problems with the sound. Seems like that's a consistent issue with my technology here. So if you hear this okay and the sound is good. Oh, it's good. I think that's good. Excellent. Why don't you put that over here and I can watch it while we're talking. Great. So welcome to another Monday in the cellar with Ken Hardcastle, winemaker at Hermit Woods Winery, and myself, Bob Manley. And unfortunately, Chuck could not join us today. He's off flying again, which is good news. He's
great news. He hasn't flown since March.
And that is what he loves to do.
Yeah, he does love to fly.
He does
Next
love
to sailing and drinking wine.
Yes,
and
I think if he had a choice,
canoeing and skiing and biking
flying.
and
yeah. So he is
flying.
He's flying.
No, it's great. Yeah.
So that's good, and he'll be back. I think next Monday, but I'm not 100% sure. So we have some fun stuff to talk about today, and
some wine to drink.
And some wine to drink, which you already knew that, because we wouldn't be here if there wasn't wine to drink. But before I get into the details of today's show. I have a couple exciting announcements. If you haven't seen on our website, I just recently posted, or on our Facebook page and our website, we were just recently featured in a wonderful article in Vin Pair magazine.
Yeah.
Really exciting. Gradually, some of the national media are starting to come to accept fruit wine as something other than what it has been known to be for years and years, which is often sweet and something very different from the wines that people are used to drinking from the wine regions of the world. So.
Yeah, I think part of the more of the acceptance is Michael Therrien is really sort of leading the charge, and he's a winemaker, a real winemaker from Napa.
A real winemaker? What are you talking about?
Well, the people that deal with honey and fruit and stuff like that are on the fringe, on the cutting edge of non-traditional wine, I should say. A traditional winemaker. How about that?
Okay, classic.
So Michael Therrien is a classic winemaker in Napa, making some beautiful Cabernet and red blends. And he has a connection, a heritage in Maine. So he comes back every year for the wild blueberry harvest, and he makes a couple of blueberry wines. And we met him, was that 2014 or 2015?
Yes, 14.
With the
when you went to New York,
to New York City
to share our wines at a blueberry event.
Yeah, it was an event, and they had experts from all over the country. And Michael flew in from California, and we came down from New Hampshire. There was a guy out of Maine who was the chef, making some incredible things out of foraged foods and wild blueberries. And Michael's main wine is Bluette. It's a traditional method Champenois blueberry wine. And we've gone out and visited him in Napa and brought our Petite Blue Reserve, and some of our other blueberry dry wines, and got to sample wines out of barrels in his cellar and all that stuff. So it's really great to see. And I think because he is a traditional winemaker, there's more acceptance for people, the traditional wine world, to say, oh, okay, so you make Cabernet, and now you're telling me I should try this stuff out of blueberries.
Absolutely. It's more than that. He's not only a traditional winemaker, he's a maker of wine in Napa Valley. And Napa Valley is considered one of the premier, obviously, American wine regions. And so the fact that
regions.
Global, absolutely. Yeah. And so Michael has been able to shine a brighter light on the subject. Nonetheless, I think that some of the work that Ken is doing and others around the country is really exciting, and it's really great that the national media is starting to accept the wines that Hermit Woods and Michael Therrien with his Bluette, and there's a wonderful farm, and I'm sorry, I'm not even going to remember the name, and it's frustrating. In Vermont. It's also featured in the article.
Yep.
I am anxious to learn more about them. I hadn't heard of them before this article, so it's great to see somebody else out there working in a different way.
I love the fact that they eschew sort of all traditional methods of sulfur and yeast inoculation and all that, and work with cider apples, what nature gives them in Vermont, which is perfect, which is really what we try to do here at Hermit Woods. And yeah, I think Michael cracks the door for us, but really we have a much broader spectrum of activities going on, for sure. But it brings us out into the larger arena, which is wonderful, which is great.
So if you want to see what that magazine had to say about us, you can go to our website or to our Facebook page, and the link will be there. Also, soon to be announced on our Facebook page and website is I was recently invited to talk on a podcast for a couple of young podcasters getting their start in the food and wine industry here in New England, and it was fun to talk to them about a little bit about our history. And so if you want to hear that podcast, that's also online. We just received, just moments ago, so you're on the cutting
literally,
edge
we were
here.
running around setting stuff up, and FedEx shows up.
Shows up. So guess what they showed up with? Look at this.
It's a gigantic cylinder of cheese. Oh, no, that's not cheese.
What is that, folks? That is
A reel-to-reel?
2,500 labels for our new Petite Blue in a can. Look at that. I'm so excited.
It's hilarious. I love that label.
So-
the tuba, of course,
The
with our
tuba,
new
yeah.
music venue on the 3rd floor, soon to be finished.
That's right. And so stay tuned. I think the date is the December 11th.
December 11th.
This goes into cans, so it'll be available for sure on December 12th. Come by and see us and you can get some. And also excited.
Also on that same day,
that
we got
same day, look.
two new products.
Another big wheel of Winnipesaukee Rosé.
Look, this label.
This is a reveal. I don't think anybody's seen this yet. I have
Few
not shared
customers,
this
I think, have
around.
showed just, yeah.
Yeah.
No, only the Petite Blue.
Yeah, so I think
Maybe
this
just
is
you and Chuck and I and close family members
this
have
is
seen
the
that.
first Winnipesaukee Rosé. You're all familiar with our rosé. It's very classically styled.
This is the sparkling version.
This is the
in
sparkling
can.
version, and it will be in cans, and we can't wait to see this on a can in our tasting room. So stay tuned. These are coming within the next few weeks. We're going to have new canned products. I'm so excited. We want to do a variety pack, right? We're going to do a sample. We're going to do all 4, so you can try one of each of our
almost
canned
out of the
products.
go-go, though, so.
So,
The good thing is
All
we're
right.
canning that on the 28th again,
yes.
because we're almost out.
Oh, and speaking of, I mentioned this last week. We actually have an order, and we will be delivering our cranberry cider to the New Hampshire liquor stores in the next
Thursday.
week or so.
It's happening on Thursday. 2 days from
I
now.
better get the box labels printed. So yes, we're going to have our canned cider in the liquor store sometime very soon, possibly probably next week or so. It takes time. Once we deliver to the warehouse, it takes time to get it out to the stores.
We've had quite a ramble here.
So we're rambling,
anything
yeah. So
in our glasses.
let's get to the subject of the day. If you've seen our heading on this post, you'll see that we have some exciting comparisons to do. I went to the New Hampshire liquor store today, and we purchased 3 wines that we think are sort of reminiscent of the style of some of the wines that we're producing, some of the red wines we're producing. And so we're gonna try a Rhone. This is a Rhone variety. It's from the Vaccaray is the region.
Yep.
And it's an excellent region. If you haven't had wines from that area, it's just a little bit east of the Châteauneuf-du-Pape area.
Mhm.
And I love their wines. Some beautiful representations of
Quite a few of the
some
Vaccarays
Rhones.
too, if I remember correctly, for a very reasonable price point. You can get beautiful
Yes,
Grenache
yes.
blends and Syrah and really nice wines.
That's one of the
for
things.
value.
If you like French wines,
Chateauneuf
head
can
south.
get a bit pricey,
Yes, that's true.
but Vaccaray is
Vaccarais, and if you get into Provence, Provence and Languedoc, those
Languedoc,
southern French regions, they used to be known for the French wines that are sort of the box wine of French wines, if there is such a thing. The mass-produced, lower-priced wines were usually done in the southern regions, but those regions have in the last 20 years have really started to turn that around and start producing some really fine quality wines, but they haven't caught up to Bordeaux, and Burgundy on the price front. So you want some really nice French wines, look for the southern region. So that's the first one. Then we're going to try this is a Côte de Rhone. This is you got 2 Côte de Rhones here.
yes.
We had a Burgundy.
Yes, I know. I wasn't sure with these wines whether or not we would have the Burgundy or go more to the nuance of the Côte de Rhone.
You have 2 Côte de Rhones.
I know, but they'll often do a different blend, and they can taste quite different. Some are really heavy in Grenache, others are really heavy in Syrah. I don't know these 2 in particular. This is 70% Grenache, 30% Syrah. This one we don't know. So We could go. You want to bring in the Pinot?
I think we should
instead
do
of this.
We should do one Burgundy and one. Oh, you can open them all. I don't care. I'm just going to drink them. I think we need to do a Burgundy. We always talk
Okay.
about Burgundy, right?
Okay. Yes. I hope all of you out there, if you ever have a chance during these sessions, to also enjoy some wine. I know Bob likes to put this out a little bit ahead of time so that you at least know we're doing reds or whites or something like that. It is often later on in the decision matrix of the day when we come up with exactly what we're doing. But
Well, that's why I only put it out there 2 hours ago.
okay.
It's not a lot of notice. I'll try and get better at that.
So this will be kind of fun. So I opened up the Lake House Red
Okay.
to start off, which has that sort of smoky, classic, dry, barrel-aged red wine character with its own twist. Now, we don't craft wines to try to make a Rhone red wine. This has been a pursuit, continues to be a pursuit of seeing what the fruit of New England brings to the bottle when you craft it in a classical way, in a more traditional way.
Right.
So following the same process that Michael Terrien and others and people in France use with their Syrah, with their Grenache, with their Merlot grapes, they ferment the whole fruit, they pick it at peak ripeness, they're particular about how it's grown, they ferment it at certain temperatures, they press it off, they age it in barrels, they put it through malolactic fermentation, they do all those things to craft a lovely, ageable, well-structured red wine, which we've come to know to symbolize red wine. Most people, when they take a blackberry or a blueberry, are more interested in doing the traditional sweet fruit wine sort of approach. So this is unique. It's a different sort of approach. And this is why we are comparing our fruit wines to classic dry traditional wines. For those of you who are not familiar with this, Lake House Red is a bone-dry, barrel-aged, malolactic fermented red wine. It's a blend like this Côte de Rhone that we're going to have, which is a blend. So let's just compare them and see. I think they're going to be quite different with their own unique terroir, the reflection of their place. So these are the two we're doing right now. The Lake House Red and a Côte de Rhone.
Right off the bat, the color's different. You got just some nuance, some brick color in the Lake House Red.
So
And,
you're exactly right on. And what's really interesting, when you have a traditional red wine, Grenache or Syrah based, one of the key indicators for the age of the wine is the color. When it's younger, in the first 3 years, it's reddish in tone. And as it matures 5 to 7 or 8 years, it gets a brick, like a slight orange character as it oxidizes in the bottle. The Lake House Red, because it has a good percentage of blackberry in it, blackberry is a brick-colored wine when it's brand new.
Mm.
So that's
so
the way it
has
starts
it looks
off.
aged.
So it looks
when
aged
it's
even
not.
though it isn't.
So the nose, quite different.
Yes. This Lake House Red, this vintage of Lake House Red is very smoky. There's one particular barrel that I recognized sort of after the fact in vinifying this, produces a lot of smoky character. And now I have notes in my calendar that any wine that I put in that particular barrel, I think it's barrel 25, is I check it every month to see if it's causing too much smokiness to come into the wine. I like it. It's just a little bit heavy in this younger format right now.
Probably nice in 10 years.
Or
Probably
5.
a nice 5 years.
Yeah, 3 even. Yeah.
Fruitier. It's a lot fruitier than the Côte de Rhone. This has a really nice nose. I really like the Côte de Rhone. It's got that southern French, that sort of European.
Absolutely. One of the things that I think is fundamental to wine, for those of you out there that are particular to red wines, you may not even know this, that European, French, old world wines tend to be more reserved, more closed, drier, less fruity, less oaky, less jammy. And New World wines, California, Napa, Sonoma, those tend to be really fruit forward, really jammy, really luscious, really bold.
Well, a lot of it's
in
interesting.
character.
A lot of your wines have a lot of the fruity characteristics without the jammy characteristics.
Yeah,
That
there's no
big
jamminess.
Yeah, which I like. I prefer. I prefer the European
I don't
style.
really. We both,
Yeah.
fortunately, we like the same sort of thing that way. We like that old world, more reserved wines. We were hosting friends recently, and they're very much into New World red wines, and quite enamored with a $30 Cabernet that he took and opened up one special night, and it was it's too much for me.
I agree.
It's like a double IPA. It's too much after a while.
I know if I
know
can
you
agree
can
with
drink
that.
that.
Drink those all day long. So I'm going to try the Côte de Rhone now.
I love Grenache. So, to me, big difference in the tannic structure. Grape wines have massive tannic structure to them that blackberries, blueberries, and elderberries do not. They just don't have it. It's not part of it. The skins are thinner, the seeds are smaller,
Right.
and Vitis vinifera grapes have thick skins and have big seeds, and it produces a lot of tannins. And people that craft red wines from those traditional grapes actually struggle a bit to worry about the texture of their tannins and to make sure that they can soften those tannins and work with it. On my end, on our end, to try to craft a wine that has a little bit more tannic structure, I could cheat in my book and buy tannin powder. I could buy it derived from grapes, it's organic, and I could sprinkle it into the barrel. Add 20 grams here, 30 grams there, and boom, I would have that tannic structure. But that's not true to the materials, and I just have no interest in doing that. I've never done that. But it is a common way to work with wines and to shape them. And this is fairly young in the exploration of wine crafting out of the fruits of New England. So I want to understand the individual fruit as it is before I start merging and manipulating and changing it in other ways.
Like you said, you're not trying to make a Rhone wine.
Right, exactly.
You're trying to
But
make a wine.
I like Rhone wine, so it pulls me towards when I taste these two, I miss the tannic structure in the Lake House Red, but I miss some of the unique fruity character in the Lake House Red between the two. So they're both very enjoyable wines, but they're quite different.
That's why I think we're going to be closer with the Burgundy. We have in the past.
We might. Yeah, we could try it. Let's do it.
This has. It's interesting. The acidity is similar. It's not too different than.
I've been finding that more and more. I used to stress or concern myself or focus on the high acid levels of New England fruits because it's colder climate. But I've had quite a few Sangioveses and Rhone blends and Washington Pinots that have a lot of acid in them that are quite similar to what we get from our fruit.
Right.
So
and I find that to be the case here.
Yeah. I mean this Lake House Red has a wonderful softness that you typically only get when you age out a higher tannic wine longer.
I also think the Lake House Red lingers in my mouth longer. Even though this has all that tannic structure,
this is longer. This is a bigger wine.
It goes away.
Yeah. This lingers a lot longer.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Which is nice. You want that when you're having a meal.
Or a piece of cheese.
Or a piece of cheese.
Oh,
and we're having some cheese. Yeah, he cuts them up. We can't have all these nice red wines without some cheese. So Grafton Village is kind enough to share their 2-year cheddar cheese with us. Thank you, Grafton Village. They're out of Vermont. And another wonderful Vermont meat company, the Vermont Salami Company. And this is their juniper salami. So we're going to try some of that.
These are both from our deli, and our chef uses them on our cheese boards and offerings upstairs, and they sell the whole samples as well, the whole bricks of cheese out of the deli.
Let's say hello to a couple people while we're.
Oh, good.
We got Chelsea. Oh, Chelsea's joined us. Nice to see you.
She's like 4 doors down.
No. And Matt, nice to see you, Matt. Thanks for joining us. It's been a couple weeks since we've seen you. Gary's joined us as well. Nice to see you, Gary. And let's see, who else is out there?
Oh, that's nice. You know,
Geraldine's joined us. And,
hi, Geraldine.
And Jen Eaton's joined us.
Excellent.
Hi,
Hey,
Jen. Haven't seen you in a few weeks, or at least that we've known, but glad you could join us today.
Yeah.
I hope you all have a drink in front of you, either a Hermit Woods or some other fine wine that you like from your collection. We wouldn't want you to be without.
You know, one of these days we're going to have this lake house red with a smoked cheese, and I bet it'd be awesome with it because
we have
this
some
cheese
smoked
is
cheese.
really nice with the smoky aroma of this lake house red. Really very nice.
We have two smoked cheeses in our deli. The smoked, one of my favorites is the Harmon's.
Oh, the really
aged smoked cheddar. Yeah. Oh my God, I can't eat enough of that. Oh, it's dangerous. And then there's the and Grafton does a nice maple smoked.
Oh,
if you haven't tried that, you should try it. It's very nice, very different than the really aged smoked, but still very nice. So
like wine. I mean, cheese is a fermented food, and it's highly variable.
That's right. Exactly.
And it just pairs beautifully with wine.
You ready? I love that sound. You know, screw caps are handy and convenient, but still can't beat that sound. So this is the Pinot Noir. I have to finish my.
All right, so we're going to do a little Pinot in comparison to the Lake House Red.
You know what's interesting? That Rhone, it was really the first sip or two I kind of liked, but as I've been sitting here sipping it, it's I don't know, something's changing about it. As it's opening up in the bottle. It's not what I thought it would be.
To me, I think it was really. I agree. The first opening, but it's changing. Let's return to it.
Yeah, let's return to
a
it.
couple times through this as we compare the other wines. So we're still on the Lake House Red with the.
Pinot Noir.
Now we're going with a Pinot Noir, a French Pinot.
So French Pinot, where'd you put it? Right here. So this is Louis Jardot. It's a Burgundy, and we've had this before.
See, so this is where I think you're right on. Where so much in the realm of Pinot Noir grape is it has this beautiful floral, fruity
nose
up front.
There it is. And
Gamay is another one that we haven't explored that we really should look into with some of these wines because I think that grape also has that floral.
Yeah, the nose is more consistent.
It's
different. It's got its own smells for sure, but it's definitely got that fruity, that upfront fruit in the nose.
I think you're right. The body, the flavor, the length of the flavors lingers on a bit more.
Yep.
Then that Rhone blend really sort of dropped off.
Mm-hmm.
It hit you up front, but it tapered pretty quickly. The Lake House Red lingers a long time, and this Pinot's quite nice.
Well. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we always discuss a number of your wines. I think lean more towards
the Pinot, the Burgundy
territory.
realm.
Yeah. And we've found that consistently when we've tried other Burgundies.
Yeah.
So I think when we get into the Hermitage,
that's going to be fun.
We're going to dig in on that Rhone.
You know, I think if I had somehow ended up down the path, living in Sonoma, growing grapes, making wine, that Pinot would be one of the grapes that I would really love to pursue. It brings so much to the glass as a varietal. When it's done well, it doesn't lack anything on its own. You know, Cabernet is hard to do on its own. Merlot is hard to do on its own. But Pinot is one that, when it's done well, it's just wonderful. Like blueberry. I think when blueberry is done well on its own, it's a fantastic fruit.
Well, and I think it's also suggested by the fact that Burgundy is one of the most famous wine regions in the world.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And selling some of the most expensive wines in the world as a result.
Right.
So it's Burgundy and and Bordeaux, the regions of France that people think of and know of. There's so many other great wines out there, but those are the most famous of them.
Yeah.
It's just the same way in California. Napa and Sonoma have sort of become synonymous with great American wine. But if you've traveled in California, there's some absolutely amazing wines outside of those two counties that are being made. Coastal region, the Paso Robles region, and the Mendocino now. They're pushing up into the cooler parts of the state and producing Pinots, lots of Pinots up there.
Right.
And more on the coastal region, the Russian River Valley, and there's just so many really wonderful wines. And because they don't have the same name recognition as Sonoma and Napa, they don't get the price. So you and I benefit. We get to drink great wines, but don't have to spend the whole bank to do it. So
it's really, and California is massive. I mean, if you superimposed California geographically on top of Europe, you cover all of France and Germany and parts of Italy.
Right.
You know, so it does afford that full range of flavors and regions,
and then you get up to Oregon,
or go down into Temecula or Simi Valley or wherever it is. It's vast, and then go up into Washington and Oregon are fantastic.
Yeah. Gary's commenting on how his favorite is the smoked character in the Lake House Red that we just had.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. It was a little.
Actually, no, he said extra aged smoked cheddar with the Lake House.
Oh yeah, I think that's going to be just
the way to go.
A great combo for sure. Or like a smoky barbecued ribs, along with it. Some Syrah will have sort of that smoky character and go real well with it. So let's go. So we're comparing Lake House Red with the Pinot, and what we're finding here compared to the Rhone is that the Pinot has a little bit more of that floral, fruity up front character, which is more similar to the Lake House Red. Again, they're both separate, distinct sort of
very
wines,
distinct.
but I think that's the difference. The Rhone is much more even keel. It doesn't come at you with that big floral component, and it has a bigger tannic structure than Lake House Red.
Oh, I see. Jen said that she and Jeff were here on Saturday to pick up their club. And Saturday,
sorry, I missed you guys.
We weren't here on
Always
Saturday.
Fun to see you guys.
So it's the rare time that either Ken or I or both of us aren't here. But sorry, we missed you. We'll see you next time you come in.
Yeah. So let's stick with the Pinot.
Okay.
And let's open up the Red Scare.
Good idea.
Let's try that.
Let's do that. That means I have to put some more Pinot in my glass. And by the way, this is, I don't know if you felt the same way, but this is a really nice Pinot.
Oh, it's a great night.
I've had this before, and I couldn't quite remember how I had felt about it, but it really drinks nice. This is available in the New Hampshire State Liquor Store. So if you're interested, it's the Louis Jadot from the Beaune area of France. Visited that area when Gerald and I were there. It was just south of Burgundy. Beautiful. We visited another winery there that was just, we had a winery tour of this very classic old French chateau, and got to go down in their cellars, and it was really a cool experience. So anyway, that's a great wine. If you're interested, you can have that at the liquor store. And
which one is that? Clear your glass a little. So we're sticking with the Pinot, but now we're going to do Pinot with Red Scare.
wait a minute. I got to get another glass because I still have Lake House Red, and I actually want to try the three.
Okay, give me another one too, will you? So many glasses, so many wines, but I've got to let you all know that when you do wine tastings, it's really fun to compare wines side by side. When you have just a single wine and you're sampling that and you're tasting it, that's enjoyable, of course, and really a way to dig in on a wine and see what it's like. But when you compare wines side by side is really where you start to pick out flavors that you wouldn't otherwise pick out. It's really strange. You may be sipping on Lake House Red, let's say, or a Cabernet, and then you take out a Merlot and you start drinking that Merlot and you go, wow, I didn't know this Merlot was tasting like that. And then you go back to the Cabernet and it's quite different between the two. All right.
Wow. And just as you're saying that, I'm sitting here stuffing my nose in the Lake House Red and the Red Scare.
Yeah.
And they're both revealing themselves differently in this pattern of tasting that we're having.
Yeah.
And especially side by side with the Lake House Red. Very different. Very different.
Yeah. Yeah. The Red Scare to me has more of that sort of floral Pinot character from the honey that lifts the floral character up out of it. I'm going to keep some Lake House Red going here too.
Yeah, stick your nose in the two side by side. It's really interesting.
I haven't done that.
It's so great. Your wines are all so distinctive. That's what I just love about this is that, a lot of times I visit wineries and I'll try 3 or 4 or 5 different wines from the same vineyard, and so often they taste the same. You get the same nose and the same character on each wine.
We've had that at places even in South Africa or Sonoma.
Yeah.
You go and you go, oh,
Just
this
not
is
a lot of
this is
variety.
our reserve Cabernet. This was our mid-range Cabernet. And you're like, okay, this is Cabernet. It's like, there's
And
a
even
little
their
difference
Merlot,
or a
and
little
they're,
nuance.
and
Yeah.
they jump around to even other grapes, and the sort of the style of that vineyard comes through the same in each of their wines in some cases. There's very just slight nuances that differ in how they're being produced.
I think for me, coming from really the world of brewing, beer, that's really where I cut my teeth in fermentation, was brewing beer. And in the 90s, people were just starting to understand the importance of yeast in brewing. Those that were out there and doing their thing had already recognized it and said, boom, this is really important to what we're doing. But for me, coming into it and learning about it, I knew that I could start with the same barley, the same hops, the same water, and if I used a different yeast or fermented at a different yeast at a different temperature, it would change the beer totally. And so when we started getting into wine, I was like, we're going to be playing around with some yeast to see what happens here. And so many of the commercial yeast strains that are available, which are derived from natural environments, settings in France and elsewhere, they've populated, regrown that yeast organism over and over again, and then basically dry it and sell it commercially. They describe certain characteristics that it brings to wine. But they're talking about Chardonnay, they're talking about Tempranillo, they're talking about regular wine grapes. They're not talking about blackberries or elderberries. So when I started fermenting blackberries, I split them up into different sections and tried different yeasts.
So how many different yeasts have you tried all together, do you think? 20, 30?
Oh, at least.
At least. Since the beginning.
Yeah.
Plus
There's
natural
a bunch
yeast.
and there are hundreds more that I want to try. It's so many hours in the day and so many batches of wine. But it's really been important to understand what yeast works well with these non-traditional fruits.
Right.
Because that's not documented anywhere.
Right.
I have to do that through experimentation and through my own taste. And I remember, I have notes from you and Geraldine tasting different batches of crabapple wine with D21, CY 3079, different sorts of yeast strains, and going, wow, this one has more fruit, this one has more structure, this one's not very interesting at all. It's like, oh, okay, so those two are going to play with.
So I love this story. Before 1850, we didn't even know what yeast was, right? Nobody knew. So wine was made just simply by basically a stroke of luck. You put your fruit in the right conditions, in the right environment, and the natural yeast that exists on the fruit will make that wine turn into alcohol, make those sugars turn into alcohol. So one of the stories that was told to me, I don't know where I learned this, but if you think about the famous wineries that have been around in France for hundreds of years, some of them, many hundreds of years, and you wonder, how these particular wineries came to be around for so long and develop such a reputation and a name. And to think that some of the reason for that lies in the fact that they happened to be in the right area with the right yeast.
100%. It's totally that.
It's so cool to me. You figure this vast region of France, and some vineyards had natural yeast that were of this variety and others of a different variety. And just like you just said, some wines do better with some yeast and some don't. And so that's that's contributed to
It's really key.
the
It's-
great
it's
wines
part
are
of the
fortunate
terroir.
to be in the great place that they're
Yeah.
in, and they were lucky to come upon a great yeast. And once a winemaker comes upon a great yeast, even before they knew what yeast was, just the practice of making the wine and spreading the excess fruit back out as compost into the vineyard,
Yep.
they're basically sending that yeast back out there to propagate and prepare them for the next year's crops.
Ancient mead makers, the stories go, when they were fermenting their honey water and grape and spice mixtures, during the fermentation they would and they would put that in the fermenter near the end of it. They would rack off their wine or mead into their barrels, and they would take that spruce bough and hang it up and let it dry. And it was coated with this milky white yeasty stuff.
Ah.
And then in the next ferment, they would mix up their honey
So
and
they didn't
water,
even know
and
what
they
they
would
were
take,
doing.
and they would take that and put it in, and boom, it would foam. It would get the magic going. And
They didn't know why. They just
didn't
knew
know why.
that
They just knew that it worked.
That whatever was in this batch should be in the next one.
Right.
So they made it happen.
Right.
That's so
They
cool.
used to have containers. I mean, there's yeast everywhere. The microbiology of our environment is massively complex.
Yeah.
We just don't. It's throughout us.
Oh, yeah.
It's everywhere. And people in the early days of making wines, they would have a container that would always make good tasting wine. So when they wanted to scale up, they would take a new container, terracotta pot or an oak pot, and we'd put it next to the other one so that it could learn. And it actually learned.
It does learn, yeah.
Because it's
The yeast
airborne,
migrate.
and they would mix the stuff together,
Absolutely.
and then they, oh, see, it worked. We can teach.
So remember we went and visited a brewery in Pennsylvania, and the brewer was telling us that they brewed their beer from wild yeast. So
I love that place. That was
so they would take a little dab of sugar water, and they'd paint it on a leaf out in front of the brewery, on a tree out in front of the brewery.
Right.
And a couple of days would go by, and they'd come and scrape that little.
they would paint sugar water on a bunch of the plants.
Yep.
On the big leaves and stuff like that, and then they would go back and see which one was working. So not all of the places would actually catch. It's kind of like catching a sourdough yeast in your house to make bread. But these guys were out there to Forest and Maine or something like that.
Yes. No, that's different. That's something else.
That's a different brewery.
You're close though. It's something
It's something like that. We have a growler out there
of theirs.
of theirs.
Yeah. I'll find out.
Yeah.
They're a great place to visit.
But it's really very key, and I think one of the reasons that our wines have distinct flavors, which is how we started down this talk, is because we use quite a few different yeasts, and I use the autochthonous indigenous yeast on the fruit in certain situations. And I do that more and more. When I have good, clean fruit that I get to work with, and it's coated, you guys have all seen this, you go and buy a cluster of grapes or a dark-skinned plum from the supermarket. And it's got like a dusty coating. You can almost wipe it off and make it shiny. You can pick an apple in an orchard and shine it up. You're wiping the yeast off of the surface. The yeast is there, it's airborne, and it knows there's sugar just beyond that skin. So to start fermentation, historically, all you have to do is break that skin and let that yeast come in contact with the sugar water. And then the magic happens. So because yeast have different characteristics, they help us define distinctive flavors. And I think in the brewing world, that's really critical. We've been to breweries when we go and we try a flight. And it's a blonde, it's a pale ale, it's an IPA, it's a stout, and they all taste quite similar. And it's very economic to use the same yeast in a brewery.
Big brick of it.
Because you just move one wine to the other, and you take this yeast from there, and you repitch it, and you're making beer. But your beers have less distinction. You go to another place and you order a flight, and every one of them is distinct and unique. They're probably pitching separate yeasts in each one of those beers.
Yeah. So,
All right.
Red Scare.
Yes.
Wait till you try this. It's so cool. I just tried it. The two together. Red Scare and the Pinot Noir, the Louis Jardot Pinot.
I love this wine.
It really is nice.
Oh. Oh, quite similar on the nose. I've got to say,
really amazing.
it's really quite Burgundy-like, Pinot Noir-like. Wow. Similar mouthfeel. The Pinot is a little more sour and dry, like bitter. And the Red Scare is like lovely, luscious.
Bright and luscious and fruity and oh yeah.
You know, we've had some better Pinots, better Burgundies, and those have more of this lusciousness to them.
Yeah,
I like. Well, I'll drink the Red Scare over this Pinot all day long.
Me too.
But in similar settings.
What's interesting is leading up, when I was again, things change as you're trying different wines and comparing them to one another. You get different perceptions. Coming off of the Côte de Rhone and then comparing the Pinot to the Lake House Red, I was really impressed with that Pinot. It really was nice,
Right.
and partly because I think that Pinot didn't compare well with the Lake House Red. But now
the challenge is
the
on.
challenge is on.
That's right.
Because
Now you got a sprinter.
I'm with you.
Now you got a sprinter running against a sprinter.
Yeah.
Before you had a long distance marathon runner against a sprinter, and it was apples and oranges.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow.
This is just it's got so much interesting stuff going on, from the nose to the complexity in your mouth to the it's clean right from the front all the way to the finish and lingers in your mouth at the end.
Yeah.
It's just really just a nice.
This
enjoyable
is
wine.
what I love in wine. This is one of my favorite wines
Yeah.
ever.
It's the best Red Scare you've ever made.
Yeah.
And in 10 years,
Oh,
oh my God, this is going to be amazing. I can't
I
wait.
love this.
We got to make sure to put a few bottles of this away.
A few cases.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I tried it with the cheese.
Yeah, it's
Not a fan.
Not a fan.
No, it's not.
Now
a fan.
why?
I think the cheddar's too sharp for it. Try it. I don't know. You might find it differently. I was going to try it with the meat after see what.
Yeah, no good.
This is fruity and
Yep.
all those
Doesn't
nice
work.
complex flavors, and you kind of ruin some of that.
It
with
might
the
work
cheese.
with like a.
This is spicy meat. Maybe it'll work with the meat.
And the Pinot is okay with the cheese, but not as nice as the Rhone
No, I didn't try that.
with the Lake House Red.
Louis Jadot doesn't pair as well, says Matt. Try Red Scare with the cheese and chocolate. That will demonstrate the differences. Red Scare holds up to Irish cheddar.
Matt has really. I think he's. What little I know about what he does, he seems to dig in on everything in a really inquisitive, smart way to find the path to what's there. And so he's done this with wine. Correct me if I'm wrong. He wasn't a big wine connoisseur a decade ago. That he's really been
No, I
getting
think
more
he's
into the
been
wine
really exploring
recently,
wine,
right?
yeah.
Right, Matt? And
Tell us,
I
Matt.
think that's right on. That trying to do these end member experiences helps you move towards finding out what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
For you and I too. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
a constant
It's always learning.
path. It's a journey.
Always learning.
Yeah.
And honestly, Matt mentioned it does go good with Irish cheddar. I mean, every cheese is different. Every cheese is going to have a different nuance about it and a different sharpness and different flavors. I know from experience that Red Scare goes well with cheese. It's just the right cheese.
Yeah.
And that's true with anything. It's got to be the right
I like
food.
it with the sausage.
I was
better than the cheese.
It's better than the cheese.
Yeah.
It goes really
Much
well, which
better.
is really surprising because
Yeah.
you would think of that sausage being as spicy as it is, it would be overpowering, but
no,
there's
the pepper,
a lot going
the
on.
pepper and stuff really
Yeah.
goes well with that Red Scare. There's enough richness in the Red Scare, I think, to
Yeah.
work with it.
Yeah, it does.
And that's
it
probably
actually
true of
enhances-
any Burgundy, any Pinot-based wine.
Well,
Probably similar.
Let's see.
Let's try it.
Let's see. I'm going to try with the cheese first.
I did the cheese before and I wasn't impressed. It was okay
With the
but,
Louis
but
Jadot?
with the Pinot, yeah.
Yes, a similar problem. This, you know what it is? It's the fruitiness is competing with the
With the cheesiness.
cheesiness. that you want the fruitiness, and that's weird. It's because I mean sometimes that goes well. I mean we like to have fruit with our cheese.
Well, maybe if you had a brie with a little crabapple sauce on it or something, that you had something that was a little more
bring out the fruitiness.
fruity.
Yeah. Karen Maneri's watching. Hi, Karen. Haven't seen you in so
Karen.
long.
All right.
Nice to see you here digitally. Matt says, yes, I did the Rhone region in the 70s. So he's been exploring wine for a long time, I guess.
Oh,
And
corrected. Thank
whatever
you.
wineries
Very
were
good.
close to the canals, but not a huge fan until I found fruit wines. So there you have it.
Fruit wines in France.
Thank you, Matt. No, I think he's referring to
Our
what
wine.
he's discovered here,
Oh.
possibly ours
Oh,
or
okay.
somebody else's. Bought a total of 34 blueberry wines. Deep Blue is number one. Thank you, Matt. Always appreciate it.
Wow, excellent. All right.
So we'll try the meat.
So
with the,
I like again
Meat goes well.
the meat goes well.
these two wines are so stylistically similar.
They
It's
are-
really
they are
fascinating.
They are quite similar. Not the Lake House Red at all.
Yeah, I'll have that with the meat. So it was interesting. If you read earlier we mentioned, if you weren't here, we mentioned that we were in Vin Pair magazine this month, and the article's on our website. I was struck by something that Terrian said toward the end of his story, and he talked about his resistance to try and compare his Bluette with other classically styled wines. I don't know if you caught that.
I don't recall that. I remember I was focused on his interest in the micro style of blueberries, because you and I have been talking about that for many years, and it's of interest to us. And when we went and spoke with Todd Merrill, we learned about how blueberries grow, and it's not just by field or row by row in Burgundy. And so Michael, I think, is going to find some very interesting results from doing that.
Yeah, I think so too. But he does go on. Read it again. I think you'll see what I
Okay.
mean. He goes on to talk about that he's really not trying to compare himself in any way to other wine regions or other wine styles, and he's resisting it purposefully. He says he feels like he's creating a niche or a place in and of itself for where he wants. So he doesn't have to be compared.
But that's interesting though, because
I
don't really agree with that approach, because you learn from comparison to other flavors. So Belgian beers, wide spectrum, fantastic beers, and someone may say, well, I'm not going to compare my beer to this American beer or this English beer, but the only way you're going to understand how that Belgian beer really stands out to that English beer or that Colorado beer is because of trying them side by side. So I would think, for me, because I'm more explorative, I guess, or I don't know, I like this comparison because I learn about both products. I learn about Pinot, I learn about Rhone, I learn about Lake House Red, and I learn about Red Scare, all in one setting.
And that's absolutely right. And I agree with you. I brought this up because I know that we are of like mind on this subject. But in Michael's defense, I think what he would be saying to you now is we're not comparing German beer with Belgian beer or American beer. We're comparing mead with beer, or we're comparing wine with beer.
So it's apples and oranges.
It's apples and oranges. He's of the mind, at least as I read that article, that in some ways blueberry or fruit wine is not wine in the traditional sense, and needs to stand as its own character.
But you take this Pinot, you take this Red Scare, and you put this Red Scare in a lineup of a bunch of Pinots.
I'm with you.
And people would be going, wow, this is a pretty nice Pinot we got going on over here. And then we tell them it's made out of fruit. And his Bluette might do that if you compare it with some Gamay or some dry fermented other grapes that were done in that fashion. They come out that way.
He can approach this whatever he wants, and ultimately the consumer who buys the wine is going to be the one who decides what they compare it to and what they want to consider it in their repertoire of alcoholic beverages. But I really believe, and I want to always make sure that it's clear. Ken and I have never, and Chuck have never ventured off to create Burgundies. We don't want to create a Burgundy. We want to create a wine that's about us, that's about New Hampshire, that's about about Hermit Woods. That's about who we are and where we are and our terroir and what's exciting about what's going on in our part of the world. And but at the same time, I want to enjoy the wines that we're making in the same way that I would enjoy Burgundy. I want to have it with a cheese, or I want to have it with some meat, or I want to enjoy it stylistically in the way I would enjoy other wines in other parts of the world. So I think I differ if I read it correctly, but I'd be interested to see after you read it again.
We'll talk to him. I mean, that was fun.
Yeah.
I can remember sitting on his little veranda out there before we went over to his warehouse of barrels and talking about wines and sharing our wines, and so we'll just hook up with Michael and talk about it, because it's always enjoyable and interesting. All right.
So where are we going now? We've got Red Scare. We've got.
So we got to try Hermitage.
Hermitage. Okay. So
and we got to try that bad boy right there. That's a totally different grape.
Oh yes, the Chianti Classico. So now we're going to go to Italian wines. Now I have less experience with Italian wines, although I am a fan. It's interesting. There's a lot of different things going on in Italy, most of which most Americans aren't that familiar with, only because, again, I think that the representation of Italian wines that we get here...
I think it's the export. It's the whole thing. It's like South African wines.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the whole export thing.
So one of the things that I found interesting is the Super Tuscan, which has sort of come into its own in the last 10 years. And I've read this before, I'm not the one saying this, but the Super Tuscan really came into its own as a response to Bordeaux and Napa. And
there's a lot of controversy about all of that.
Yeah, so, Robert Parker really he's the one who sort of created this interest in this big, juicy, full-bodied, high alcohol,
came up with a point system that really shut everybody down or propped them way up.
So the Super Tuscan came up sort of following in that vein as a way to create a wine that differentiates itself from other Tuscan wines and has the characteristics that was seemingly becoming more and more popular around the world, largely because of Robert Parker and his 100-point scale, and all of the Parker followers in the wine production side of things. So it's interesting, really fascinating.
There's Italian wines are very unique in themselves. The country as a whole produces a wide variety of wines from many different grapes.
Which one are we rinsing? Did you rinse already?
No, I haven't.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's good. So Italy has a tremendous... You can spend your whole life sipping Italian wines for the rest of your life and not even cover them all. It's just incredible. The Nebbiolo grape in Barolo, the Sangiovese in Chianti, and the incredible whites, the Prosecco and Treviso region, down in the southern regions with their Super Tuscans, where they grow Cabernet. They brought Cabernet in because of Robert Parker. And a lot of the Italians said, what? That's not right. What are you doing bringing in this French grape? We don't want this French grape. There's a lot of national pride that goes on with
There's so many names of grapes in Italy that I go to the liquor store and I read about. I have no idea what they are.
I can't keep up. Oh, man. I haven't had this.
I know. I just felt the same way. And it's so different again from the last two wines we just had, from the Red Scare.
This is really cool. I would think that I would be more familiar with these, but what's really interesting, so this is the 2017 Hermitage, which is what we're have on our shelves right now. The 18 is bottled, but it's not released yet.
I need to get you some of this in your glass.
Yes, I know. Let me finish this up.
That was a Red Scare. I could tell you. A little rinse.
Yep. Oh, Italian wine. Oh, yeah. So personal thing here. So my father was a chemistry professor, and he had the opportunity to interact with some colleagues in mostly central northern Italy for the last couple of decades of his professional career. Slow down? With all our drinking?
Yeah. Sorry.
So I'm gonna keep going here, Matt, at full speed because there's so much to cover, and we only have an hour. So
Yeah.
that's all there is. So I got introduced to Italy, a lot of it through my father's activities in Parma, in Florence, in different regions, and he fell in love with Barolo and Nebbiolo-based wines, as well as Chiantis and the whole activities there. And so there, yeah, exactly. There are all so many wonderful grapes and unique wines, but they're quite different. They're definitely old world wines. They have that character that some, French wines or Spanish wines have. They're not that new world jammy sort of character, so they're approachable that way.
Mm-hmm.
They also have their different flavor profiles because they're different grapes, and they can pair really well with Italian foods. They go side by side. They're from they're from the same area. You have a tangy tomato sauce based dish, and you crack open a nice bottle of Chianti, and it's just magic. They just go beautifully together. So this is interesting. So we've opened up a Chianti. I assume it's Sangiovese based. I haven't looked at the label. That's one of the major grapes that's grown, but could be wrong. There could be a different grape listed on there, or maybe they don't tell us what it is.
Sangiovese.
Okay, Sangiovese. These grapes in a lot of the regions of Italy, which is very California-like in temperature, climate, and variability, this sort of central California, have a unique character and flavor format to them that are really enjoyable. Wow, very interesting side by side, because the alcohol level is quite similar. The fruity level or lack of fruity level is quite similar. It's different. They're not the same. There's a different flavor profile.
Something
aroma.
a little more fruity on the Hermitage. Yeah. And this almost seems more alcoholic. A little more alcohol.
The Chianti?
On the Chianti. I don't even know what the alcohol is on this Chianti. I'm sure it has somewhere 13.5. It's right in the ballpark. Well, I think you're at 13.
I'm buying an Abulometer, just so you know.
You were at 13.5
Oh,
too.
yeah. Oh, yeah, right on.
Absolutely. You're buying an Abulometer, are you?
Yeah, it's good.
Do I get the website first?
Millionaire. Yeah, I'm doing this on my own.
After the website.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Personal funds. All right, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking this. Well, this is the this is the
Chianti.
Italian, the Chianti,
Okay.
and this is the Hermitage.
Yes,
I haven't
you're
drank
sure?
anything yet. Still trying to decipher the nose. There's so many different things going on.
So the Chianti, to me, is a little reminiscent of the Rhone.
It is.
The grape, there's a smoky oak note to it. The alcohol heat, the austere sort of dry character to it. I'm actually more drawn to the aromas of the Hermitage from the fruit, but that's because I like a more burgundy-ish like wine.
That Hermitage is drinking so nice right now. Damn. Great complexity. So all kinds of things going on.
I'm really, I got to be honest.
We're biased.
When I was, well, it is. You do have to be careful from sort of the household structure. You get used to a certain format. But objectively, and we're doing this next to commercial products.
Nice commercial products. These aren't
side by side.
These aren't run-of-the-mill wines. These are nice wines.
It's good. And when this Hermitage was blended up, it was a little underwhelming and a little disappointing than the 15 that I was comparing it to. Because I was sipping 15 and 14 while I was blending the 17. And I was thinking about it, and it was time, and I wasn't sure about how things would meld together. And now, a couple years in the bottle, and the fruits emerge, the structure's there, and it's a really beautiful, lovely wine. There's certain characteristics to wine that, to me personally, make them really engaging. They need to be flavorful, they need to be balanced, they need to be appropriate for what you're doing, eating or whatever, and without flaws. So, you just tried the Chianti.
Really, really interesting. So my impression is, first of all, the Chianti does not have the range or the depth. It's more unidimensional. Single note.
I get the single note too.
Yeah, and
Which is strawberry.
it's a nice note.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
Really
not.
nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's smooth, and the tannins are soft.
That's a nice Chianti.
It's a nice Chianti.
Man. Nozole.
So
DOCGs. Yeah, there's all sorts of crazy rating systems in Italy. Carry on though with your.
So comparing it to the Hermitage,
Yep.
where there's this is like an amusement park, like all kinds of things going on, like the noises of the crowds and the bells and whistles and it's all this stuff going on in my head. It's exciting. It's all this stuff, and this is like sort of austere. It's kind of like it's like a
Walking into a museum.
Yes, yes, it's
certain
like
section of a museum, and
going in your
everything's
museum.
done really nicely.
Exactly.
It's velvet.
Everything's
it's well
displayed
lit.
beautifully.
Yeah, it's
and
nice. It's enjoyable. That's the.
This is just fun and lots of stuff going on. Lots, and maybe not everybody. Maybe the amusement park wouldn't be seen as necessarily a good analogy, but it is for me because it's exciting. I mean, that's when you go to an amusement park, you're excited by so many things. Your senses are just alive because there's so much going on, and that's what I feel like when I'm drinking.
So, for you out there that may not know this, one of the things that Bob enjoys, and he has a certain phrase that he uses, and it's not amusement park, it's action-packed. When Bob and Chuck and I are going somewhere and we're out for breakfast or we're out for lunch or whatever, and something is action-packed, it's a full-on. So this is action-packed is what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Oh,
So
an action pack goes really good with sausage.
I bet it does. I bet it goes really well with
But it's
this.
spicy. You got the spicy characteristics of the Hermitage. So I'm interested to hear your analysis of this.
So I agree. I think amusement park is not. That doesn't set the right word for me.
Flying by the seat of my pants.
No, of course we're alive always in this sort of thing. We just let it roll. But I agree. It's a more interesting, complex, multifaceted beverage. There's a lot going on. It's action packed, and it may be that it's still a bit young, still sort of finding itself, still evolving.
It is. We already determined that. This is 5 to 10 years in the making before it's really going to come into its own.
So the Chianti, what I like about the Chianti is there's a certain, almost like nostalgia, like music brings on a feeling about a certain place or a certain time. So when I have Chianti, it brings back lots of different memories, different places, different settings, certain bowls of pasta, certain people sitting around late at the table with a long discussion going on, eating really well-aged Reggiano Parmesan or something. It's just before the grappa comes out. It has a nuance, a character. What I want to try to do is to do the Chianti with the Rhone and come full circle here, because there's some aspects to this Chianti that are reminiscent of the Rhone to me. But that's 45-minute memory.
Sure.
And it may be quite different
Well,
when
it's probably changed a little bit too. Matt says he's going to be comparing our our Red Scare. I think it's our Red Scare with 8 different caviars this weekend. Do you have another seat
Matt,
available?
can I come over? I'll bring the Red Scare.
And he goes on to say he compares it to a traveling carnival.
Oh, so he likes the wording too, the
I guess.
carnival thing.
Yeah.
So I'm making carnival, amusement park wines.
Well, and I thought of that as I was saying that. I was thinking, this isn't going to, Ken's not going to appreciate that I've compared his wine to a carnival.
No, that's all right. Everybody is.
But you got to understand. Like one of my, and I'm so sad I missed it. The Sandwich Fair was canceled this year.
Of course.
And the Sandwich Fair for me is one of the most meaningful experiences because it's all about talk about terroir.
Oh, do cheese in the Sangiovese, the Chianti.
So talk about terroir. Your local fair and amusement park maybe is just part of it, but your local fair is made up of all of the things that are about
The place.
Yeah. And it's all of the people that are about the place, and there's something so warm and comforting about being at a local country fair when you hear the animals and the people
You can
and
smell
the food
stand.
cooking.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
it's just this really wonderful experience. So it's every bit of a compliment in every bit the way I was thinking about it.
No,
and
I took it
describing
that way.
it. So
It's great. It's
But I can see,
So Italian wines with cheese to me almost always go really, really well.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? You just put both in your mouth and keep going.
Excuse us, folks. We're gonna have some cheese and some wine.
It is amazing when they hit, and it's just like, okay, that's what I want to do now.
Take this home and eat cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
How about with the Hermitage?
Oh, let's try that. Okay. The Hermitage has a big floral component that almost brings it into that Burgundy range again.
It has some of that, yeah.
It has some of the Red Scare sort of character to it. I've never noticed that before. But that's done without honey. This is just those dark fruits.
Yeah. And it does actually hold up
Go nice with the cheese.
Yeah. I think the Sangiovese goes nicer with this cheese.
The Sangiovese
It's not
is incredible
Not
with the
quite
cheese.
the same. Yeah.
Well, again, it's like the Red Scare with cheese, or the Lake House Red with cheese. Not the great with the spicy. Yeah, I agree. It's okay, but not spot on. That Sangiovese, that Chianti with the cheese is really a great match, for sure.
Yeah.
So, what's interesting here, just at the base level, which is really fun, and you and I fell in love with this, decades ago of exploring wines together, and we're now sitting in a situation where we're exploring Italian and French wines with wines that we've crafted in our winery. And we're trying them side by side. And they're in the same arena. They're in the same sort of spectrum of full-on red wines. Some are better than others at this or that. This has a certain characteristic. It's a wide range of stuff going on. But to me, in this pursuit, we've actually been able to craft red wines that have the structure and feel and place from New England fruits with classic red wines from other places.
Absolutely.
And that is just amazing. I don't know that we could do that years ago with some of our early vintages of what's going on, but now we're starting to get the rhythm down and the feel for the fruit and the fermentation and the product to where it's standing quite nicely side by side with some of these other wines.
So let's actually bring it to a close with that comment, and that's really what I got out of this today. It was really amazing. We went all over the world trying different wines and comparing them to those that we crafted right here in this cellar that Ken made from the local fruit from local farmers, and it's been a great ride. They're all very different, and yet in some ways very similar, which is what makes wine so wonderful. Is that every bottle brings something different to the table, and that's what's going to happen here. These wines that we shared with you from France and Italy, they're available in the local liquor stores if you're interested in picking them up and trying them yourself. All three of them were very nice. I wouldn't turn any of them away. They were all very nice in different times and places for sure. And of course our wines are also available in the liquor store. And
not these three though.
Not those
not
three.
Yet.
Not yet. Someday they will be. So with that, a couple things before we go. We're excited about some upcoming shows. We're going to bring Melanie, our new assistant winemaker, on board. And Melanie's going to bring some wines from the Biltmore Hotel down in the Biltmore Winery, the Biltmore Estate down in North Carolina. And we're going to learn a little bit about Melanie and her vast experience in making wine. But 16 years she was down there.
Yep.
And try some of the wines that she had a hand in making. So we're really excited about introducing you to her.
Yeah, she's ordered those up, and so they'll be coming, maybe not next Monday, but the Monday after.
Okay.
We'll be very soon on that.
We also will be, we've invited our new chef, Deborah Urquhart, to craft some special foods for us one Monday, and she's going to join us. And we're going to have some great food and compare some of her new foods
I love this stuff.
With some of our wines.
This is exactly what we want
It's exactly what we should be doing.
This is exactly what we should be doing.
So I know I should be doing a better job of letting you all know what's coming up, but here I am. I'm telling you right now. So you want to participate in these fun events.
Do a fine job at it.
You join us at 4:00 on Monday, and you'll get to learn all about some of the exciting things. And one last, for those of you who might not have seen it. Here it is.
Oh yeah, very exciting.
It's our new label. This is our Winnipesaukee Rosé coming onto cans in just a few.
In cans.
weeks.
So this is canned wine. 2 new products of canned wine.
And Petite Blue.
The Petite Blue is the same straight, dry, uncarbonated Petite Blue. And the way they do that is with a nitrogen dose during the canning process. I had to order a dewar.
A what?
Of nitrogen. A dewar.
A dewar.
D-E-W-A-R. It's a big old thing that's very dangerous, and it's liquid nitrogen.
Oh,
we could have a lot of fun freezing shit while we're, while we're dealing with this whole canning thing. Did I just say that out loud? Yeah. Okay. So we have to deal with this nitrogen so that we can transfer the wine without carbonating it and still have a good rigid can protected wine.
Under
It's
pressure.
all done under nitrogen.
Yeah. That'll be fun. We'll talk more about that when we talk about the canning. We'll do an episode dedicated to our new canned products for sure.
We could have fun with just an episode of liquid nitrogen too. 'Cause it's a lot of fun. My dad brought some home from the chemistry department once. That was a lot of fun.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to that, won't we?
You've
So-
never done that? Taking rose petals or rubber hoses, stick them in liquid nitrogen, and then
No.
they just shatter.
Oh no.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Well, tune in.
It's incredible.
We'll share this
We're
one.
going to have 180 liters of liquid nitrogen, but we're only going to use a quarter of it in our bottling. So we gotta play with the rest of it.
All right, you tune in. We got some fun stuff coming up. So thank you all for tuning in today. Thank you, especially Matt. I see you've got a number of great comments. I'm looking forward to reading them, and we'll talk more after we get off. We'll respond to any comments after we get offline. I hope you can all join us next Monday and Mondays after. I'll do a better job of trying to give you a little forewarning of what we're going to be talking about, but if not, well, join us on Monday.
And also, Matt, Jen, others, you really are wonderful people. We love interacting with you, and if you're planning to come, you're going to be here on a Saturday or something like that, shoot us a note, let us know, and we'll be here.
Yeah,
We'd love to see
absolutely.
you.
We'll make a
would be
special
great.
trip if we're not here already.
Yeah.
Anytime you come up, just let us know. We'd love to see you. So,
Yeah.
thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next Monday in the cellar with Ken Hardcastle, winemaker at Hermit Woods Winery. So.
And liquid nitrogen.
And liquid nitrogen.
Fun guy.